Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're now on Red Circle instead of Podbean, but also on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. And check out 5reasonsports.com. That's 5reasonsports.com. We do not have a paywall. We are sponsored tonight on Post Splits by A Aggressive Insurance. Reach out to Insurance by Lynette. That's 2 N's and 2 T's. InsuranceByLynette.com. If you need life insurance, if you need renter's insurance, and especially if you need car insurance, if you have trouble getting it, she's the person to go to. So reach out to InsuranceByLynette.com, A Aggressive Insurance. And now, tonight's episode.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome back to 5 on the Floor. I am your host, Greg Sylvander. With me on tonight's episode, it's just the two of us, Bryan Fonseca and myself. Follow him on Twitter at Bryan Fonseca NY. Again, I'm Greg Sylvander. Tonight's floor plan, we're going to go over the gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, just absolutely of course moments, which was the Portland Trailblazers coming into Miami and literally stealing one from the Miami Heat. We're going to talk about that game. There's some things we definitely need to dive into. I guess I'm going to start here. And Bryan, thank you for joining me. It is just you and I. Ethan, Brady, Alex are all at the game, just so that our listeners have context. Right now, Miami Heat beat in hangover time is taking over the YouTube channel. So make sure you check that out as well. We'll have our 5 on the Floor live back the rest of this season, or the rest of this week, excuse me. Yeah, so I'm rattled, man. This game is
disoriented from this loss.
So check this out. Check this out. Like this is one of those games. There are games throughout a season, and where you think you have enough, things are going as if you have enough, and then the rug gets pulled out from underneath you. And Indiana felt like they could have got that one too. Although Indiana is a tougher place to play, but this is one that they could have absolutely had. They were up by 15 in the third, up by 11 in the fourth. Bryan pre-show was going over some of the fourth quarter numbers, and I'm gonna let him wax poetic on those in a minute, but it's not good for the Heat. And these are the type of losses that you can't afford. The margin for error is too small. The Eastern Conference is too competitive, and you are not talented enough top to bottom. And I think that we all acknowledge that. Tyler Hero was missing. I don't know that would have necessarily been the biggest difference in what happened tonight. This is just about the team letting the foot, and I hate to be like with hyperbole as we start, but like they just in the fourth quarter, they let the foot off the gas pedal. Like it was just a situation where I felt like they abandoned the zone in moments. And now that's twice that the zone was positively impacting winning and confusing the other team. It happened up in Indiana. They abandoned the zone to end the game. The team comes back. They're in the middle of a dogfight. I'm not feeling great about after this one. So Bryan, you're going to need to talk me up. But what are your initial takeaways on the 110-107 loss that Miami just had on their home floor to Portland?
I'm not sure I can, because I think this was a worse loss than Indiana, because in Indiana, one, they were on the road, two, they didn't play well. In this game, they played well, really well, until the last few minutes of the game. Yeah, you can nitpick at some things on both ends of the floor, but for all intents and purposes, one of the best games that they played this season up until the last few minutes of the game. Once they overturned the call, there was an offensive foul call on Bam Adebayo that was originally called a foul on Anthony Simons, where Bam wrapped around him or whatever. And when they called the foul and when they went to review it, I'm like, oh man, that's getting overturned. And it's like, we'll see how they respond to this one. And I don't want to say, because it's not a 5-alarm fire to me. I have perspective, and this is not a lost season already or anything crazy like that 11 games in. However, I will say that it's starting to feel a little bit more like the 2020-2021 season after they went to the finals in 2020. I think this team is better than that team, but I think this team has some glaring issues and the big difference from where I was before the season to where I was now on this team is before the season, I felt like they can probably get away with an incomplete roster until January. But that was also accounting for we expected Victor Oladipo and Omer Yurtseven to be rotation contributors and playing like considerable amount of minutes. Like pretty much all these Dwayne Dedmon minutes I thought were going to Omer Yurtseven, or at least most of them, right? Maybe even a few more. And Victor Oladipo, we thought he was going to be practically the sixth man. So that's like 25 minutes a game. Like, so and just at the end of this game, we were talking about it. We might as well get into the play itself, where Max Strus hits this amazing contested 3-point shot from the corner. And it's just a typical like Max Strus shot, like a no, yes shot toward the end. And then you're like, oh shit, they might be going to overtime. We might have to do post game a little bit later, Greg, even though they started at 8:30. Right. You know what I mean? And then Portland doesn't take a timeout in the situation, which I admire. So shout out to Coach Chauncey Billups there. Damian Lillard is being guarded by Jimmy Butler. Smart, why not? Hands him off to Duncan Robinson, like I feel like before half court or around half court. I think it was before half court, which I found a little interesting. I feel like Duncan Robinson, they could have done that later, maybe above the 3-point line.
Or
maybe
how
not
about
to Duncan,
no? How
maybe
about
not to Duncan Robinson at all, right? Like, you're like that was weird to me. So hands him off to Duncan Robinson. And then Kyle Lowry has a decision to make. And Kyle Lowry, and I'm going to give him credit for how he played in this game later on. We'll get to that in a second. But Kyle Lowry has a decision to make, and he has to look, and he knows, you know your teammates, people. He knows that Duncan is about to get eaten by Damian Lillard on this drive. He knows that Dame is about to blow by him. And he has to make a decision. Do I try to help? Do I take a jab, fake it, and then go to my man in the corner, who is Josh Hart, very important person in this exchange here. And he decides to take a couple steps. He commits to stopping Damian Lillard, who has about 1.9 seconds left on the clock when Dame has to make this decision. He kicks it out to Josh Hart, wide open on the corner. Career 34.8% three-point shooter before this game. You know, pretty good. 40-something this year, but on very low volume. So, like, okay. And he makes a great shot and an open shot and kills him from three. And Greg, to me, like, again, this is sort of symbolic of how the season has gone so far. And they have some issues that they really have to clear up. One of them being like, I feel like they just give up way too many damn corner threes. And granted, every NBA team is trying to play for corner threes at this point. Like, you're watching a lot of offenses and literally all they're doing is jacking corner threes. But the Heat have to figure something out because they're just kind of living with the results of these corner threes, and it's not working because that's where Jeremy Grant killed them today. 5 3-pointers. And I feel like all of them were corner threes damn near. So just not great. And to what I thought was a very good performance, particularly the first half, which we can get into a little bit. But what did you think of that ending and, you know, the decisions made on that last play, the last sequence?
It's tough because, to your point, it was Josh Hart's only 3 of the game. And I think muscle memory makes you go to Dame no matter what. So I don't know that I'm going to fault Kyle for doing what he did or any of the other guys necessarily. I think that's just how, listen, this game was lost on a transition play, which led to a corner 3. And those are 2 things that are plaguing the Miami Heat at this current moment, it appears. The transition stuff, teams are trying to get Miami out of the half-court defense and play faster, and they haven't figured out a way to really adjust to that. The zone helps, but for some reason they don't stick with the zone, and I understand some of why you don't want to stick with the zone, but that's tough. And in this particular instance, Josh Hart made a great shot. I thought, you know, credit to Max Strus for hitting a really big shot. Again, he always shows up big, and that's like good for what we're going to talk about when we end this show positively, because that's the only way that we can keep our sanity when we are doing these late night shows post game.
37 fourth quarter points, by the way, the Heat allowed 37 fourth quarter points.
It's just, you can't do that and win on your home court,
on your home floor. Yep.
And especially when you're already at a deficit from a record perspective, you're shorthanded. And this is the stretch of home games you got to get, because it's not going to get easier. And this is where your season can start to spiral. So I do not mean to be an alarmist, but I will say that these are the ones you can't afford to drop. I don't know how they fix it, to your point. Shout out to Justice Winslow. I just want to sneak this in here because he played some big minutes with 6 of 8 today. And I know he likes to come back through Miami and get any kind of revenge that he can on his revenge tour. What did you see from Miami when they went away from the zone? There was really good scoring. What did they have? 7 guys in double figures, almost 8 guys. Duncan Robinson had 9 points, so he almost got there. So the really well-balanced approach. So to your point, no, you know what? Save your positive stuff. Why does this keep happening in the fourth quarter? Like where they have leads and they're losing. Like I'm at a loss for it. I need, I guess, probably somebody to dig in play by play. Shout out to Brady. He'll probably bring me something, but are you seeing anything specifically? Cause to me, it's just like energy, effort, and shots going in. And maybe I'm simplifying it too much because I tend to do that.
And stupid lapses, unheat-like lapses, defensively in particular. To some degree, Portland shots started going in. Like that happened as well. I did feel like they were able to get to their spots easier, but like sometimes that happens, not to oversimplify it, but sometimes teams just start hitting shots that they've been shooting all game and they make them at the right time. And Portland, like they stuck with it. You know what I mean? And Damian Lillard is one of the best leaders in the NBA. Probably, told them some shit in the fourth quarter to get them going. I'm not sure. Here's the thing though, like this is a loss reminiscent of, and Greg, maybe you'll feel me on this, of what we started seeing late last year before the blow up that ended up galvanizing their season. That's what this loss felt like. They had another loss at home that I'm blanking on right now because they're starting to pile up a little bit. I think they're 3-4 at home now. They had another loss at home recently that felt the same way or similarly, but this is more of a gut punch to them in particular because of how it went down. But, like they had the Knicks loss last year. They were playing well, and then the Knicks kicked their fucking ass in the fourth quarter. And Portland is better than the Knicks. But Portland's better than those Knicks teams. But Portland, like, they're a good offensive team, but you cannot, under any circumstances, you could throw all the advanced shit out the window, which, we're going to get to at some point. I mean, I'm sure we can comb through the numbers throughout the week, whatever the case may be. This just happened, so we're reacting in real time. You can throw all that shit out the window because you look at 37 points in the fourth quarter on your home floor, a team that prides itself on defensive intensity, protecting their home floor, like historically one of the better home court teams in NBA history. And again, this is a stretch where, 6 out of 7 games at home in this current stretch? 5 out of 6. And you know what I mean? Like whatever it is, 6 out of 7, 5 out of 6. You cannot, because you know what that means. That means you're going to have stretches later in the year where it's going to be 5 out of 6 on the road. Then what? So 20 games into the season, which we're going to get to in about 9 games. So later this year, we're going to see where they're at. But I was telling you, 20 games into the season, you're 25% done. You can't be under 500. And it looks like they're going to be under 500 if they don't get their shit together. And then at that point, what do? Right? Because I was telling you, Greg, and we did this on streams or whatever the case may be. I was like, you better not be I was saying 10-10. You better not be 10-10 after the first 20 games of the season, or 11-9. Like you want to be at least 12-8, 13-7, something like that. Maybe even a stronger start because you got all these home games.
Now you'll take 10. Yeah,
you'll take 10-10 now.
Moving the goalposts,
because
that'll some have accused us here on this show,
right? Because that'll mean you're 6-3 after this. Like you can't afford. Ultimately, you just can't afford to let this shit keep happening. And Another thing that's interesting in the rotation, they played 8 guys. They had some guys out. They're leading on 8. I thought the rotation was going to be 10, 11 deep. We're seeing it shrink. We're seeing like 8 guys get heavy minutes.
And this is happening a lot. And then this is Spoelstra. Like, listen, believe what y'all want. And this is not based on any information. This is just me watching, and me have watched a lot of these games. This is Spoelstra trying to make sure that this is the way that he tries to save the season in terms of shrink the rotation, play who he thinks can contribute and mesh, and try to get through a stretch that is otherwise it's pivotal. You know what I mean? Like, to your point, like they can't be with only 7 wins, 20 games into the season or something like that. And now you're in a spot where, to your point, like, 10-10 would be great. And you know what? You'll probably still be in the playoff mix if you're 10-10. And one thing that does get me a little, and we're not going to get too big picture philosophical here because we're going to stick to this game, but this is something for an off day that we should touch on. Like, if you hang around and you're 10-10 and you're 3.5 games out of the 3 seed, but 3.5 games out of the 9 seed, like that's your kind of where you are throughout the season, and you maneuver there. What I wonder is, do the Heat get reluctant to empty the few draft picks they do have to make an upgrade when they are essentially going to be in a relatively same spot? And you're not necessarily bleeding out. So it'll be something to watch. But if they have a lot more games like this, where the defense is leaking and Josh Hart is finding something in the corner, that is not going to be good for the season. It will be a disaster. And do you have a water leak and don't know where it's coming from? Because the Heat had a leak on defense and they didn't know where it came from. Are you dealing with water or mold damage in your home or business? Call Water Cleanup of Florida at 954-579-0356 for immediate assistance. With over 60 years of combined experience, Michael, Robert, their whole team are prepared to handle any size leak detection issues 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. After the leak has been located and repaired, Water Cleanup of Florida will then clean, dry, and fully restore the damaged area. Water Cleanup of Florida is a fully licensed, insured, and certified group that is providing one-stop shopping to busy homeowners and business owners alike. There is no need to bring in any other contractors. It's a one-stop shop. They will handle everything start to finish. Service areas include Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach County. Call Michael anytime on his personal cell. Again, that's 954-579-0356. That's 954-579-0356, or visit their website, wcufl.com. Check out those Google reviews. They tell the truth sometimes. You get some good ones and some bad ones, but they got 70 5-star reviews on Google. That's Water Cleanup of Florida. If you got the schmutz, they have the guts. So, let's tie a bow on this heartbreaker, and then we're going to try to get into a little bit of what we should take positively, because I felt like there were good things happening until that thing happened. And then this shit became
for like 45 minutes. Yeah.
You know what? I don't want to talk about this game anymore. If you got anything else to say about this game, you have at it.
Yeah, just because as we're doing this, some quotes are coming out from some of our own.
Oh, those could be good. Reasons. Those could be good.
Brady Hawk 305 on Twitter. Bam says, I felt like we should have had that one. That's a quote. Bam on the final play. Another one. We just talked about the final play for a few minutes. Quote, you see Damian Lillard driving up, you want the ball out of his hands. Close quote. I mean, and you alluded to this too. It's hard to talk about that, but we won't harp on it too much, because by the time this comes out, people will have seen a lot of the stuff already. But I guess if we are getting to some of the positives that you could take away from this, because there were a bunch before what happened, and I felt like, again, we have to give Kyle Lowry some credit for how he played tonight. I felt like, so one of the things that they can take away offensively is where a lot of the good stuff, was there for me. In a game, by the way, like we should mention, Tyler Hero did not play because of an ankle injury. And the offense was stagnant, like very, very early on, like first play or two, whatever the case may be. Kyle Lowry hit 2 threes, and I felt like everyone got in their rhythm. That opened things up. Everyone got in their rhythm. Ball was moving around. Jimmy Butler, like he saw that he wasn't getting calls that he probably normally would, was kicking it around, had his best passing game of the season. 8 minutes left in the game. Blazers cut it to 4, and Kyle Lowry hits a 3. And then on the very next play, after they get a stop, hits Max Strus cutting. He gets a bucket at the rim, 9-point lead. Little things like that, like buckets when they needed them. Lowry got an and one with 6:15 left while the Heat were up 7. He hit a shot. He hit a pump fake. I mean, he hit a fist pump, rather. He hit a shot, fist pump, winked at Jimmy. Biggest smile I've seen him have all season long, pretty much.
Good call.
In that moment.
Very true, because you
Biggest
haven't seen
smile,
him have fun. You're right.
Biggest smile I had. He had a wink, the whole shit. It was great. Jimmy Butler ran to the bench, looked at like Victor Oladipo and others, was like smiling, talking about presumably that player, whatever Kyle said to him, whatever the case may be. It's unfortunate that they ended up losing after that, but I feel like Kyle got them buckets at points when it mattered, at least in those instances, and was really quarterbacking the team well and had an all-around very good game. And like I said, Jimmy Butler's best passing game, I think part of the reason the ball was moving was because those two in particular were being very unselfish. The team had 27 assists and 10 turnovers. And you'll take that every single time. Bam, I'd actually like to see him initiate offense more from the high post, but they went to some of that today. He hit Max Strus on a beautiful cut, bounce pass. It was beautiful. Anytime that Bam is used as an offensive hub, I'm here for it, particularly when you have the shooters going, because then he's going to have his drives. He's going to have his rolls. He's going to be able to get some easy buckets and things of that nature. Some of that was working. A lot of that was working, as a matter of fact, offensively. So those are things that they can take forward. Granted, Portland's not an amazing defensive team, but they do have some better defensive players like Jeremy Grant and others than they had in years past. So, a good effort. Yeah.
I mean, it hurts when I hear you so beautifully articulate some of the things that took place, because to your point, like, there were things clicking. They looked very cohesive, connected. I'm not trying to be with alliteration when I use those, back-to-back, cohesive, collective, blah, blah, blah. They really did look that way. Brady Hawk, also want to shout out him on the timeline for this part, because he's going to be going over late game film. But this is something I alluded to earlier in the show, and I don't understand what's happening. Zone was working. Then they go to the soft switching, and things got weird defensively, and then the ball got stagnant late. And I don't understand why those two things keep kind of plaguing this team. You see the shot from Tyler Hero. Yeah, when I gave him, and I'm going back to the Indiana game just so that everyone is clear where my head is veering off to. That, like, I kind of said, you know what, he didn't have much time. He just tried to get up the best attempt possible. But truthfully, that there could have been more action there. And then, like, you just see some of the stuff at the end of the game, the shot profile, ball movement, it's not there. And here's the other thing when you talk about backbreaking losses. And then we're going to close with some more positive stuff, look ahead a little bit. So just hang with us, y'all. This is a range of emotions on Five on the Floor directly following this kind of gut punch. This is 4 games in a row that come down to the final possession. And you need at least some of those to be going your way. And if enough of them, particularly on your home floor, don't go your way, so just beware as we go forward, it's the time of games that collectively knock the wind out of the spirit of a locker room. You got guys getting more cranky. You see players missing games, and soft tissue injuries become a thing, louder and louder. So all I'm saying is that they just don't have that much more margin for error. And so I think we can end there in terms of this particular game, because, and Brian, I will definitely let you get in here, but I just, I often am, people wag their finger at me and say that I'm enabling this team and that I'm always like, oh, they're fine, when they're really not fine. Well, the truth is actually they're still fine right now. So, like, I hate that, that is still the thing that I need to tell you guys, because it'll piss you off. I'm glad you're pissed off. That is some inner work you can do that I don't need to deal with. They're still fine, and they have moves that they can make, and it's a very long season, but I will give the compassionate concession that if you continue to do this shit, this season is going to be down the drain, and they're going to have tough decisions to make, because I don't think they can just let this team fester for the rest of the year like the whale that washes up on the shores. They need to go hunting for some sort of fish. It don't got to be a whale. Maybe we're just going out to catch some mahi, but it needs to be something other than a whale that is getting stank on the beach shore. And that is what this team could turn into if you don't make changes. I digress. Brian, any final thoughts before we just clean up the show by going through any other positives to pull from and a look ahead to the next game against Charlotte?
I guess this counts as a positive. Excuse me, but I think a lot of their errors are correctable. I feel like one of the issues that I'm having with this team is, to your point, they're just going away from shit that works too often. Tyler Band pick and roll works a couple times, and we don't see it again for a while. Defense works for a sustainable period, a quarter, whatever it is, whatever the run is, and then they just go away from it. And it's like, I don't know if Spo is outthinking himself. Sometimes that happens, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's right there for you in whatever instance, and you just go away from what's working because you think that the other team, the other coach is going to catch on and counter to you. Sometimes they don't. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, like we've often said, Tyler Band pick and roll, probably the best play that they can run. They couldn't run that because Tyler didn't play today. We saw Jimmy Band pick and roll that I thought was interesting early on, that I felt like they got a good shot out of that. And I don't recall seeing it again for a while. You know what I mean? Like it's just I would have to look back because maybe it happened more than once. But regardless, the point is that this team goes away from things that work too often. And they really need to stick with things that work because, again, like there's just glaring weaknesses. And we have to remember when assessing this team also, like, and I mentioned this earlier, but it bears reiteration that this team is very shorthanded in terms of like there are two big portions of this team. Omer Yurtseven, people could say what they want. He was going to be a big portion of this team this year. He was going to be in the rotation. He was going to have a shot at it. However he would have done, like, we won't know because he's been injured right now for longer than I expected, at the very least, with an ankle injury.
I'm hearing he's getting closer, but ankles are weird, and that's why I don't like Tyler's ankle injury. Continue.
Yeah, he might have a high ankle sprain for all we freaking know. Because like how long has he been out at this point, right? We're approaching a month if you really think about it. And then with Victor Oladipo, I mean, how much can you really rely on him at this point? Unfortunately, like it sucks, but like, sometimes the body just betrays you, and we'll all go back to that botched surgery and be like, damn, like that really is the point that really messed up his career, unfortunately. So yeah, they have some things to figure out. They do have moves they can make, but you have to keep some water in the bucket. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to stay afloat.
You got to stay afloat. You know what I mean? One drop can make the bucket of water overflow, or whatever Dan Le Batard said that one time a couple months ago on the show. But like that's really what it is. You have to like just be at this point. If you're not going to make any significant moves until January, which is 2 months and a week from now. So
oh my God,
I'm not sure they can wait that long.
No,
but like shit, I got a birthday between now and that day. You know what I mean? Like it's a while from now. But
for our mental health, they need to make a move.
Right. You got to do something. But if you're gonna wait that long, you better be around 500 by that point, because that's the other thing, Greg. It's like you can stay around 500 and be okay at that point, make a move, and potentially get to whatever point you're going to get to. Because if you end the season 45-37, 46-36, and you're like a 5 seed, 6 seed, like, the East is going to just be weird this year. It's going to be similar to last year where you had a bunch of teams all next to each other. That's going to be happening all season long.
You're right.
So you want to just stay in the mix. But right now they're 12th, and you don't want to be 12th.
Right.
So that's where we're at.
Luckily, we can point to the early season, but you're right. You can't stay in 12 very much longer. I do want to tell you about one other great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. It is our daily fantasy sponsor of the entire network and 5 on the Floor, and that's Prize Picks, my favorite daily fantasy platform. It's daily fantasy made easy. They'll match your first deposit up to $100 if you use the code 5. That's FIVE. Makes it super simple. You use your code 5, get your initial deposit matched up to $100. Then you play NFL, NBA, choose your favorite stars, Josh Allen, Steph Curry, You can then choose the stat: passing yards, 3-pointers made, points scored in the game. They give you the stat. You choose over or under. When you choose 2, 3, 4 players on one card together, you can win up to 10 times your money if you get them all correctly on the same card. So use the code 5 to double your initial deposit up to $100. It's daily fantasy made easy. This is the fastest growing daily fantasy platform on planet Earth. Basically, you got to check it out. Use the code 5. I'm co-signing it heavy because I play it all the time. And my cards were mixed. There were some clutch plays, but we're not going to go through them on tonight's show. I do want to spend 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, 1 minute, and say that Gabe Vincent, you are playing very well. Continue to play the way you are playing. I think the Heat are in a very interesting scenario with Max and with Gabe because they're looking like players that I think you're going to be able to sign for mid-level like contracts in the future, and they can be potential starters. So to me, that is a positive coming out of this game. Looking ahead, some other things that I think are worth noting. Charlotte, they play twice in a row in Miami. It's hard to beat a team twice. That's going to be a test of this team's character to watch.
You better beat that one twice.
You know what? That's
Come
what
on,
I mean.
Greg.
Like, when we talk about seasons kind of veering off in the wrong direction, this is one of those stretches where you can't lose another heartbreaker. And then even if you win the other one, like 2 heartbreakers in a row, that kind of stuff is killer. So we're going to watch for that ahead of time. But I do think Kyle has played a lot better. I think that overall the bench in terms of Gabe and Max is working. But there's just holes that, to your point, they're not going to be filled with what's here. And they're just got to try to stay with some water in the bucket, as we use that reference, until they can get, to trade season. Final thoughts, Brian, before we close.
You better win these next 2 games against Charlotte.
You better.
You better, because then the home stretch is pretty much over, because then you have home against Phoenix. They can win that game. They beat Phoenix last year on the road. Phoenix beat the hell out of them at home, whatever they switched. They can beat Phoenix at home.
Don't feel good.
Right. They can beat Phoenix at home. That I wouldn't pick them. I've put it this way. I'm not gambling on that game for them to win at home, but they can do that. And they better, because after that, oh boy, at Toronto, at Washington, at Cleveland, at Minnesota, and that can very easily be a 1-3 stretch. That can very easily be a 1-3 stretch. So you have to win these games. And then shortly after that, you have 2 home games back-to-back against Washington. I don't think you're going to go 3-0 against a decent Washington team. And then after that, it's at Atlanta, at Boston twice, at Memphis. This is not going to be easy. And by losing these games, these close games, they're shooting themselves in the foot. So they ultimately just have to stockpile some wins ASAP.
Yeah, this is 3 of them. Could have got the Toronto win at home. They lost by 3.
That was the other one.
Could have got the last 2 games that came down to the final possession. These are the type of games they have to have. They did not get them. They will have the ability to make up for them by winning some of these that people think they can't win, like at Cleveland is one that I think all the fans are going to be dreading, and they may show up for that one. So we'll see. But right now, there's a lot to fix. Brian wants to sneak one more thing in here, I could tell.
I'm very interested in seeing, because they have Cleveland and Minnesota back-to-back.
Yeah.
And in terms of matchups right. And we're complaining about the size. They need to get bigger. They just have to, right? They just have to. They're playing one dude. Well, no, they're playing Dwayne Dedmon also. So they're playing 2 guys 6'9" and up regularly, right?
Yeah, we're going to go 1.43.
At Cleveland, at Minnesota on November 20th and 21st. That's the next back-to-back, by the way. Oh, boy. That I feel like that's going to be a very important back-to-back for how we think they're going to move forward.
Better ice that ankle. Good night.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.
Hey, I'm driving. I joined the new Dunkin' Rewards program, and today's the day I'm going to use my points on a medium iced latte and a couple of chocolate frosted donuts.
Here you go, and thanks for being a rewards member.
And now I'm using those chocolate frosted donuts, kids, to get a few sweet, sweet, blissful minutes of beautiful relief from the never-ending onslaught of backseat bickering.
Join new Dunkin' Rewards today. Join new Dunkin' Rewards today. Save them, stack them, use them how you want. America runs on Dunkin'. Terms apply.